I have been an MRV expert for the last 7 years. I've been working for the Commission, coordinating the Commission's reporting to the UN, and then I also got involved into developing country reporting and was a member of CGE for a few years. I am no longer working. I'm a mom, but I'm also an independent consultant on MRV, kind of using the experience I have working on this issue. So the German-South Africa Partnership was kind enough to have me coordinate this meeting. So how we're going to do it today is we're going to have all the presentations at the beginning. As we go through the various presenters, and we have today Dirk from Germany is going to be presenting for us a couple of slides on their legal framework. Then he will be followed by Dana from the European Commission. Then we're going to have Monica from Mexico, and Avian Tapello from South Africa. So we'll let them go through their presentations. In the meantime, do take the opportunity to write your questions in the chat. I will be following those and making notes so that we can come back to them after the presentations. And then, yeah, when all the presentations are over, I'll go back to some questions that I have received from South Africa, and of course, the questions that you had during the presentation, so we're going to try to use those to have a relevant, hopefully for you, discussion. Okay, I see my sound is not very clear. Does that help if I move closer to my PC, Monica?
I can hear you very well, Rasmia. That's Tapello here.
Okay, good. So it seems that only Monica is having the problem. Maybe Adele and the team can look into it. So what I wanted to do is just say a couple of words on MRV and why we need an MRV system. So let's start by what are the MRV obligations for non-Annex I countries at the moment. So you'll have the national communication every 4 years. We have now the decision of the biennial update report, the first one due this year. And of course, there's now a decision on international consultation and analysis. So obviously, having a system in place will help deliver on all of these 3 different fronts that are ahead of us. In terms of MRV and why do we even have we even been talking about MRV all these years in the negotiations, is because it's a very good platform to build trust, to see how we're doing in terms of our 2-degree goal, and even more importantly, it's a way for recognizing the actions that parties are taking, acknowledge those, and also at the same time ensure that the necessary support is being provided. So that's a very important aspect. And let us not forget that at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is not only monitor the emissions, but also improve through time. So having a good MRV system in place will help bring improvement and will help also bring more cost efficiency as we go along the road. So for a good MRV, you need to put together a good system. Institutionalizing the MRV, providing a solid legal framework is very important. And this is what we're here to discuss today. How do we put that together? It's obviously different from one country to the next, and national circumstances need to be taken into account. And I think the 4 presentations we're going to have today will show us how different countries dealt with their different national circumstances. At the end of the day, why do you want the MRV system? You want it so that you know what, you have a better view of what the resource requirements are, and you can take into account those, which, as I said, in the long term, it can lead to significant also cost benefits. I mean, you have better policies if you have a good system in place. There is more operational efficiency. You know, you have your data, and then you can use them for multiple purposes in multiple ways. That is very important and enhances your overall credibility. And of course, it gives you the sense of security, because instead of trying to solve problems on an ad hoc basis. Now you have a specific system that helps you deal with problems in a more systematic way and not kind of trying to figure out who's responsible for what on a last-minute basis. And of course, we all know that that's never helpful and creates a lot of stress and a lot of cost in a system. Having a good system in place means you, as I said, you can have very good reporting, you can have a very good sense of what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how you're delivering on your goals. As a result, it can help you to better access financial resources. It can help you access the international carbon markets. It can help ensure the integrity of the actions that you're taking. And of course, at the end of the day, as I said, it really shows you, helps you see whether you've managed to deliver on all the goals that you've set for yourself, either nationally or internationally. So very important. A question that was brought by South Africa was to what extent such a system should be mostly voluntary, or to what extent you need to have a very, very strict legal framework. In my view, my experience, probably a combination of both is required. And now, as I said at the beginning, it's very much a matter of the different countries to see, what percentage of what and what the mix will look like at the end for each one of your countries. That's an individual choice, and maybe you'll be inspired from what our presenters here today will say. So this is a bit of an introduction from myself. I'm talking a bit fast, I know that, but you have the slides, nothing groundbreaking, just a bit setting the floor for today's discussion. And maybe without anything further from my side, I would like you to pass it on to Dirk Günther, first of all, from Germany. Dirk, I'm passing it over to you. Please do say a few words as to what your duties are, where you come from, and then maybe we can just dive right into your couple of slides that you have on how Germany is dealing with MRV and the legal framework around it.
Yeah, thank you, Smia. Good afternoon, all. As Smia already said, I'm from Germany. I'm working for the German Federal Environment Agency and doing the coordination of the German national system on emission inventories. So the German system for inventories is basically the core of all MRV systems, so to say, in Germany. And I would like to present to you how our system functions. Often I call our system a multi-layer network of almost voluntary cooperation. Almost because the implementation of the KP, which is the basis of our national system on emissions inventory, is to fulfill the requirements of the Article 5.1 of the KP. The implementation of that in Germany is not on a legal basis, so let's say there's no implementation law in Germany for the KP, but it bases on an agreement of the deputy ministers of the relevant ministries, departments in Germany. So and this oh, my presentation is gone for me. Could you see the presentation still?
No, we can't, but if you can wait just a second, because I see most of us cannot.
Can you see the presentations now?
No.
I do have it on my screen again.
I still see only my last slide, Ado.
Okay. Oscar can see it, Thorsten can see it, Monica as well. So perhaps I'm just go ahead. So the German national system is a multi-layer network, basically, and So and the first layer of this network is the level of the Federal Environmental Agency. The Federal Environmental Agency has fulfills the role of the single national entity, which is required according to the Article 5.1 of the KP, and has the coordination role of the entire system and established the inventories on emissions. The next layer is, so to say, the level of the federal government and all the institutions which are involved into the departments and the institutions and the organizations behind the German federal ministries. So we have the Thünen Institute, which is responsible for the inventories on LULUCF and agriculture. We have the Working Group on Energy Balance, which is establishing the data for the inventories on energy emissions, and of course the Federal Statistical Office. All this is grounded on this State Secretary agreement from 2007. In this agreement, the relevant departments agreed on their role in fulfilling the requirements of the Kyoto Protocol and agrees to deliver and supply the relevant data for the inventories. We have an agreement, a separate agreement with the Federal Statistical Office, and this is basically because of confidential data that the Federal Environment Agency does have the access to confidential data of the Statistical Office, which is not allowed without such an agreement in Germany. And the third level of the system is all the institutions for the national system which are outside the federal government. So external experts, business associations, but also companies, the German Länder Authority. You know, Germany is a federal state, so we have the federal states with, which has responsibilities in that as well. With these, the data supply by the company, by the associations, is not on a basis of a law, but we have voluntary agreements with business associations and even with companies, where we negotiate with them separately what kind of data they can and will and should supply to us, and what we are doing with the data and what we are allowed to do with the data. So in this regard, it is almost voluntary, but there's also this statistical laws of the Federal Statistical Office, which we are using. So this is basically how our system works. Coming to the main challenges and lessons learned we had from the system. This is what South Africa raised: how to solve or how to deal with voluntary reporting. From my perspective, a voluntary reporting system has its challenges in terms of sustainability, because the data streams are not that sustainable as with obligations by a law. But on the other side, it is more flexible. If you have changes in data structures, if you have new requirements, you can react with a system on the basis of agreements, on a voluntary system, more flexible than you can with a static law. What we learned with our system is that it is rather important to start simple, to look what is the main sources of emissions, and then to try to solve this, and then try to outreach the system and to incorporate more and more institutions and source categories into the system. Use existing data and use existing structures because they're already there. You do not have to establish them anew, and you can use these data streams for your MRV system as well. For example, most of the countries have some data delivering structures to the FAO or to the EAR. So use this data to incorporate the data streams into your MRV system. What we learned as well in terms of how to bring data suppliers to deliver to you the data on a voluntary basis is point out what are the surplus for them. What is the advantage for them to have their data in the systems? And for Germany, that's basically that if we do not use the data of the associations and of the companies, we mostly used international data or national statistics, and there the emissions are generally higher. So the business associations and the companies, they have an interest to deliver us their data, because then they have lower emissions on the real basis. And on the other side, there are, of course, for them also opportunity costs. And opportunity cost is to be obliged by a law to deliver data, and this does cause costs for them. And if you have this, let's say this in the back of your head, and you can tell them, either you deliver, supply us the data, or we have to establish a new statistical law. Then they always or mostly will go for the voluntary data supply. And now, last but not least, what we learned is it is really advantageous to use such a system for multi-purposes. We do not use, as I said, our systems for the inventory, only for the inventory, but for all air carrier emissions reporting. So we use it for the national communications as well. We use it for the reporting obligations under the UNECE, so the Gothenburg Protocol. For the EU reporting requirements, we use this system. This is not only the advantage that you can use the same structures and data streams, but you have the same data basis and the same database, and you can use the same activity data for multi-purposes, and this will give you some consistency in the data and in the reporting. Last point, confidentiality. This is really a difficult point where we had to learn a lot, and how to solve this problem. This was for long years a huge problem to get confidential data, and the only way is really to convince data suppliers via an agreement where you codify what you are doing with the data and what you are not allowed to do with the data, and that you use this confidential data only in the right way, and that there is no chance to misuse this data. This is really a long process, and this took really long for us as well. Yeah, this is basically what I can say, very rough and very short, to the German national systems. There's a lot of more to say about this, to understand the systems, but in the time I have, that's it.
Thank you, Dirk, very much. I thought that was very helpful and useful, and I already have a couple of questions of my own, but I will go back to those. afterwards, I did think it was very important what you describe in terms of voluntariness and sustainability, confidentiality, and I think I myself am more interested on how you balance everything. But we'll get back to that. I will pass it on now to Dana from the European Commission, and even though there we're talking about EU level data, very much a compilation of the different member states, it's still very much a similar structure in the sense that there is a very specific set of data that you need to report to the UNFCCC, and you need to have a system in place in order for you to have access to this data. So Dana, over to you. Is Dana, am I the only one who cannot hear Dana, or?
Try again, please.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Monica, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Dana. This is Mia.
Should I try again until everybody hears me? I feel a little bit like at a TV show.
I think now we can hear you, Asita Pello. Yeah, we can hear you now, I think.
Okay, great. Thank you. I will start by presenting myself. My name is Dana Iliescu. I work, as Erasmia said, for the European Commission, and even more importantly, maybe I'm taking over from Erasmia in many of my tasks. So I've been for the last year the coordinator of the legal implementation of the monitoring mechanism regulation, which is basically the legal basis for our union inventory system. So I don't know if you can see my slide.
Have you clicked on it? Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So
no. Wait. It went away.
No, it went away.
Let's try again. Sorry. There you go. Dana, at the top, you should see a square at the very top of your screen. A square where you can turn to the referent.
Okay, so I hope now everybody sees my it's a one slide which is trying to capture the complexity of the union inventory system. And when I was preparing this presentation, Erasmia told me, please explain to us why this looks like this. Tell us more than what we can see in this monitoring mechanism regulation that is available to everybody in English. And I started wondering, why does it look like that? And the very clear answer to me was that it looked like that because it couldn't look differently, in the sense that we needed something that was fast enough and flexible enough that it fulfills the purpose of aggregating the data in 3 months. And this is, as I put it in on my slide on challenges, maybe the biggest challenge of the European Union system, the fact that we have to coordinate with 28 member states now. So unlike at member state level, our counterpart in the union system are the member states. And what we are doing in our inventory is to compile the data that we collect from member states. So we have basically, on the one hand, member states doing their own data collections, as Dirk presented before, reporting them to us. And what the Commission is doing and what the union system is about is aggregating this data and performing QA/QC procedures on the data. And we are doing this with one person in the Commission, a few persons in our executive agency, and with a lot of goodwill from the member states and from the European Topic Center, which is checks for us. And here I go to how we manage. We manage this because we have consultants that are helping us with the more technical work. Once the checks have been performed by the consultants, they are also performed by services of the commission. Is the JRC, which is our service. They perform these checks on the LULUCF data. We have also the Eurostat, which is our energy ministry, who's performing the reference and sectorial approach on the energy data. And all these checks, they are put together and member states in a very, very short time in order for them to give their agreement, form the modifications if needed, or to give explanation why the proposed modifications do. And this happens in between 15th of January and 15th of March, and in order to enable the submission of the union inventory to the UNFCCC by 15th of April. Of course, this slide focuses on this inventory system, but I wanted to say that the legal basis has also obligations relating to reporting by member states of policies and measures and projections, which basically fit in our national communications. I wanted also to touch upon this question, which is better to have legislation or to have voluntary, and how it happens, what it is our experience at EU level. And the experience is that, and the fact is that we have a lot of obligations that are spelled in the legislation, which is basically the hardcore of the system, and it's mostly the deadlines, which are very, very important for us. But it is also that many things are happening on top of what is written in the legislation. It is a lot of cooperation that takes place in a working group, which is basically the core fora of coordination with the Commission and member states, and in between the member states. It's a place where programs are sorted out, where member states change good practices, where good ideas are being vehiculated, and good advices are being exchanged. So it's a very, very interesting group where the underlying problems are being discussed and solutions are being proposed. And even if maybe it looks like we are over-legislating, there are things that are being done on voluntary basis. And I wanted to give the example of the approximated greenhouse gas inventory that member states have been reporting to the Commission on a voluntary basis for the last few years. Basically, they are sending to us 1 year in advance the data they have on inventory. And this obligation, this voluntary reporting, we wanted to put it in hardcore legislation. And what happened there, it appeared that, as Dirk was saying about the business world, is that the member states were happy to report this information on a voluntary basis, but it was more difficult to accept that this would become a hardcore obligation. This in between the two, I think it has limits, because of course we were getting like 17 inventories up to 28 on a voluntary basis, but the rest we just didn't have. So yes, this is maybe how the two voluntary and legal are completing each other in a way. So I think this is more or less what I wanted to share with you today.
Thank you, Dana. That was very useful. Maybe 2 points from your presentation. In addition to this kind of voluntary arrangements that we will be touching upon today, another point was exactly the significance of establishing other bodies which are voluntary that can help support the system. So it's not just a matter of gathering the data, it's a matter of having groups of people that sit down together, understand what needs to be done, and they get this done. Also, I think if I look at your presentation and Dirk's presentation, you guys brought up 2 very good points with regards to voluntary reporting. Dirk mentioned how companies want to report on a voluntary basis exactly because they're afraid that their emissions are being overestimated or that what they're doing is not represented correctly. That's one big driver for them to cooperate. And you also brought the other very important point on why people might want to report voluntarily, and that is because everyone is interested in having the most recent data out there, and we all know that the UNFCCC process operates on a 2-year lag, which of course is really to no one's benefit when we're looking at industry or big concerns and the carbon markets. With that little commentary on my part, we're gonna pass it over to Monica from Mexico, and I guess for you, Monica, the establishment of the system is a more recent acquisition. I know you went through a lot. Maybe you can tell us a few words. Thank you.
I'm very glad to be here with you. Yes, I'm going to present something a little bit different, but I want first to check if you can hear me.
I can hear you. I hope everyone else can.
Thank you, everyone. I cannot see my PowerPoint, but I'm going to start presenting myself. I'm working at the Ministry of Environment in Mexico. In Mexico, we have recently approved a general law on climate change, and that changed everything at the level of the policy framework. I'm going to try to explain you what we are doing now. We work in a climate change unit underneath the Ministry of Environment. But there is also a cross-sectoral committee where many ministries from Mexico work together. I'm waiting for my PPT. Okay, I'm going to upload it myself.
We can, well, I guess some people can, some people can't see it. I can, some people can't. Maybe we can just wait a second.
But do you want me to try to upload the...
Well, what do you advise?
Well, can I
cannot see it myself.
Dirk, can you please click on End Presentation? I can see the Mexican presentation.
Yeah, same here.
Tapelo, can you see the presentation? All right. So let's try with Monica. You know how to upload a presentation, right? Okay. Some can see it.
To upload my presentation.
If that should not work for a reason, you can tell me to...
Now I can see my presentation from Tabello, and yes, I know that now everyone is seeing it.
Okay. Can you click amongst the slides to be sure? It's
Can you do a change of
it's frozen with me it's frozen. Look, you can present, and every time you go to the next slide, just give a short comment, and I will follow you, and then everybody should see it, I think.
Okay, so now you're looking at the slide with the title Mexican MRV Framework, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry for so many texts, and I just want you to guide you through my presentation. I want to explain in the first part of this slide that with our general climate change law, we have more enforcement for MRV. The general climate change law entered into force in 2012, so we recently have 1 year to implement all the instruments and all the different kind of institutions that this legal framework mandates us. In the left side of the slide, you have the policy instruments that the general climate change law mandates us to do. At the national level, we have a national climate change strategy with a vision of 10, 20, and 40 years. This is a guiding route from Mexico how to deal with climate change at all levels, national, subnational, federal, private sector, social sector, everybody is involved on that. At the federal level, we have the Special Climate Change Program. We are just delivering it right now. It's going to be published on late April of this year. And that Special Climate Change Program contains all the actions on mitigation and adaptation that the federal government is going to do in these 6 years of administration, from 2013 till 2018. And then we have another policy instrument at subnational level or local level that are the local climate change programs, that they are presented every 6 years with the administration of the local level at the state level. Then in the right side of the presentation are the policy institutions stated by the law. And now we have a national climate change system. The national climate change system is integrated by 3 institutions. The first one is the Interministerial Commission on Climate Change, where I told you that there is gathered 14 ministries: agriculture, social development, foreign affairs, all the industries, energy, of course, transportation, and all that. And then we have another institution that is a Climate Change Council. This Climate Change Council is integrated by the academia, by all those social institutions and private institutions that are really key actors on climate change. And then we have a National Institute for Ecology and Climate Change that already exists in Mexico, and it's the one on charge of the technical assistance for all governments, federal and subnational level, on technology and technical aspects on climate change. And then we have also the integration of the representatives of the states of Mexico and all the municipalities, and also the Congress. So this national climate change system is something new that came from the law, and we are just nowadays integrated this system. This is our legal framework, the first part of the slide. Then what I want to present to you are the different kind of instruments that we have in Mexico to MRV emissions and reductions. As you may know, Mexico has a national inventory on climate change. So we have this instrument that is reported in the national communications to the UNFCCC, and we are working now in the sixth communication to the UNFCCC. Each communication has a national inventory, and the institution on charge of this national inventory is the National Institute for Ecology and Climate Change, called INEC. So we have, in the first part of the emissions, we have In measurement, we have the National Emissions Inventory. We have a new National Emissions Registry. This is something really, really new that we're just implementing right now. This National Emissions Registry has a first stage in a voluntary basis that was the GHG protocol. We have the GHG protocol as a voluntary registry of emissions, but now we have a mandatory registry of emissions stated by the law. And this National Emission Registry will also have a voluntary panel for reporting reduction of emissions. Then we have also now we're going to prepare national verification entities that are the ones to be in charge of verification or verificate all the emissions reporting that we're going to have in this National Emission Registry. Then we have also local inventories that are part of those local climate change programs at a subnational level. And we have also a new national information system. This system is going to be an electronic system where we are going to have some indicators to measure all the emissions related to climate change. This is something new also, and we are developing it. This National Information System is going to be ready at the end of this year. The National Emission Registry is going to be ready in a month, and we are working currently on the next National Emission Inventory. This is regarding emissions. Regarding reductions, we have a monitoring system to measure and report all the advances of our Special Climate Change Program activities. These activities are measured only the ones that really mitigate GHG and also some, how do you call that in English? Climate pollutants. I'm going to remember the name in English, sorry. So we have this monitoring system of the Special Climate Change Program. It's an electronic monitoring system, and we have also an evaluation committee for verificate all these advances in our Special Climate Change Program. The National Emission Registry, with this panel to registry all our reduction emissions, and we also have a domestic NAMA registry. This domestic NAMA registry is something very simple, something, it's an Excel sheet to go through, but this was very important for us to establish or letting all the private sector to register at the UNFCCC NAMA registry. So this is something that has been really helpful for us to manage our domestic NAMA. And we have also developing a whole and a very huge REDD national strategy. This forestry project that has some reduction, we have also a REDD national strategy with an MRV scheme that is being developed. And in the overall of all our policy of climate change, we have a policy evaluation committee that is going to review and update our adaptation policy every 6 years and our mitigation policy every 10 years. So what I want to present today was like a complete picture, like an overall picture of what institutions and which instruments the Mexican climate change policy have in order to MRV our emissions and reduction. I'm going to pass now to the second slide. I will like to wait to see if everybody is seeing it. Can someone say that you can see it or not?
We can see it, Monica. I'll give you one more minute. You can slide.
Yes, it's really quick. I just want to go through the questions of the main challenge and important lessons. And please remember that I'm not talking only about inventory, the emissions inventory. I'm talking about the overall of the MRV system. Definitely the big challenge was to have the enforcement or the mandate to have MRV of our emissions and reductions, and the general climate change law changed everything. So a challenge before 2012 was the lack of legal framework to do MRV. Now we have this law, and it really makes all the difference. The challenges that we are facing since last year is that we have a new administration, we have new actors, we have to go through a relearning process again, and the mainstream of climate change, the mainstreaming of climate change is not really getting into all the ministries. We have that challenge. We are in the process again to spread all these cross-cutting issues of climate change. And one of the more important lessons that we have learned through the implementation of these MRV instruments and MRV policies is that we need to really look for the ownership of the MRV. Who is the one on charge of measure, report, and verify everything? So we have to be very clear of the actors that are working on all these and determine indicators to measure policies. We have a lot of work to do on adaptation, because you know that monitoring and evaluation in adaptation policies is completely different than mitigation. So there's a lot of challenge, but I don't want to take more time on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monica. I think probably Mexico is, even though it's going to sound weird, a little bit similar to the EU in that the presence of a strong legal framework has been very important for the well-functioning of your system. And I think what's very important in your approach is exactly the holistic way you've seen mitigation and adaptation. So I think you have a bit of an advantage that you built your system fairly recently, so then learning from exactly the lessons of others, you've now built a system that tries to incorporate everything. And I think you have the same challenges probably many other countries, which is the fact that you're a federal state, so of course getting to this bottom ground level data is a big challenge and really needs a very, very strong system, and maybe that's something we can also come back to that and how the voluntary versus mandatory has played a role there. Thank you again, and we're going to our last presentation for today from Thapelo from South Africa. Thapelo, you're going to be giving another approach and focusing more on exactly these questions of voluntary versus mandatory. I'll pass it on to you to introduce yourself and let us know how South Africa is dealing with everything.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
I think we are good, Thapelo, unless someone protests.
So you can hear me, yes. What I've got, Erasmia, is a slightly different approach for me. I mean, I think most of the people here have seen and have some understanding of.
One second, Thapelo. I'm not sure that everyone can see your presentation. I can't. I don't know whether the others can.
Okay,
let's see. Can everyone see the presentation? Okay, good. Yes, please go on.
I've just uploaded a slightly different version of it. I don't know if everyone will see it.
Yeah, I can see it now. Yeah, it's loading for most people. Yes, it looks like people can see it.
Okay. Except I can't seem to navigate through it. Okay, yes, that's the newly updated one.
Okay, good.
Thanks, everyone. Great, yes. You said introduce ourselves first.
Yeah.
So let me take this opportunity to introduce South Africa to you. The name is Thapelo Letiti. I'm responsible for climate change monitoring and evaluation, specifically looking at climate change mitigation responses and, of course, emissions. within the climate change branch at DIA. And my approach here, Rasmi and the team, if you can just bear with me, is slightly different in that I try to show how South Africa is tagging onto a voluntary system by business itself. So it is a business initiative which South Africa is actually using and taking onto it to promote sustainability reporting, in particular climate change reporting. The next slide, if you can all see it, I mean, it's really South Africa's overall M&E system approach. And this is the big picture going forward. I call your attention to the bottom part first, which talks to the GHG inventory system. That system is partly operational, and it has to date been collecting information on voluntary basis, so to speak, but sort of on MOU basis with businesses. And those MOUs sometimes are hard to renew, are hard to update, and it's been tricky. But going forward, the climate change response policy, which guides all work of climate change in South Africa, says that we are moving towards a fully mandatory reporting system of climate change information across the country. And what I'm putting forward before you today, this slide 2, is showing the overall approach to M&E. The bottom part, like I said, already exists partly, and it really is talking about activity data and getting companies comfortable with knowing what activity data they should bring and so on. And that has been a challenge to date. And the top part talks to climate change responses. So you see, partly the approach is similar to that of Mexico, in that we bring in GHG inventory system and what we call response and climate impact system, or the M&E system, together in parallel to support annual reporting of national reporting, BORs, and other international commitments. But what I then want to present after this is desired at the end of the day as a mandatory reporting regime. But in the meantime, while we do not have a legislative tool to use for this, what we have been doing, as I said earlier, is then tagging onto a system that industry initiated and promoting the reporting of GHG inventory, rather than using the stick in the short term, coming up with ways to incentivize, ways to motivate, targeting specific industries that are of importance within the climate change sector. So my 2 slides will talk about this voluntary reporting system that is industry initiated and industry led. How we have been working with industry to promote this, so that in fact in some cases some of the information they allow it to be in the public domain. So basically the program or the project is the Carbon Disclosure Project, which some of you will know very well. It was initiated in the UK, encouraging big businesses to voluntarily report their climate change information, and even better, to even promote for them to actually put targets towards reducing their footprints. And in South Africa, it is led by the National Business Initiative, and it targets specifically those top companies within the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, which in one way or another is linked to climate change impacts. So the bigger and the richer companies have a higher footprint nationally. And here the NDI or the system is basically using the hook of investment to bring that if you are more transparent and seen to be leading in sustainability issues, then you are more likely to attract investment. And this is the hook that the business is using, and we are really just motivating and taking onto this type of hook. So the type of projects that, the type of companies that are targeted there, the 100 top companies in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and they send, the questionnaires are sent out to these companies annually, and the results are analyzed and published annually, depending on whether the company itself is willing to have those their information publicly available. And you know that the GHG protocol, which is generally used, it uses 3 scopes: scope 1, 2, and 3. But we know that at national level, our interest is really in scope 1. What you have there, in fact, for me, as a diagram, is just to give you an idea of the distribution, the type of companies that are really represented in this scheme. There's some background noise there coming, I don't know from where. Rasmia?
I hear you perfect, like you're next to me. I don't know if anyone is having a problem.
Okay, well, let me then finish this up then and simply show the last slide that I've got there is basically just showing the trends or the results of sensitizing or promoting voluntary reporting in the public domain even through this industry-led initiative over the years. It started in 2007, and you see that almost 80%, over 80% of the companies are really now into this, and it's becoming a habit in their business. So they are starting to incorporate it in their daily business activities. And the last slide specifically is aimed to show that also there is appetite, and they are starting to understand the importance of having third-party verification of this type of reporting within their business activities, and that more and more companies are starting to see the importance of reporting on this type of voluntary basis, and they are participating in this. So this, colleagues, is sort of a slightly different angle that I wanted to bring, because, I mean, the voluntary approach that you have been using strictly for gathering climate change information, activity data, is not any different, much different from, for instance, what the German presenter, Gunther, presented earlier on today through MOUs and that. But the question is how, coming up with strategic and innovative ways to incentivize or to assist industry in doing this reporting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thapelo. This is indeed a very, very different approach than what we've seen, because you seem to be indeed relying a lot on this voluntary reporting. Maybe before I pass it on to the questions, and if everyone will allow us to maybe go for another 10 minutes, since we started late, if that's okay with everyone, so that at least we get through a couple of questions. Unless I hear a resounding no in the chat, we'll go ahead and do that. So maybe, Thapelo, just a very first quick question to you. You have this voluntary reporting, you're going through the CDP project. How do you bring this data, or how do you work with this data, and how do you adjust their quality to be able to serve the UNFCCC goals, because I understand that this reporting is not necessarily according to the very rules of the UNFCCC. So how do you deal with the various reporting streams, or how do you deal with these obligations when you go through this kind of voluntary reporting? How do you ensure quality? How do you ensure you get the data in the form that you need them?
Thanks, Erasme. Is it Erasme? I think yes. I can't see who's talking, but I guess it's you.
Yes.
Indeed. Thanks, Erasme. This is in addition, mind you, to some of the other MOUs that are still in existence with other business associations. But the key here is that they incentivize, or actually getting companies used to this, or making it become part of their annual activities, and being comfortable with having this presented in the public space. So as you can see, slide 4 there, I've tried to show you, and figure 6 there talks about scope 1 and scope 2 of emissions as presented under the CDP. So CDP uses primarily World Resources Institute, what do you call this, GHG protocol. Which has scope 1, scope 2, and scope 2. So scope 1 is really where our interest is. So what we're doing is, through the CDP, they already have a way to manage internally, I'm taking a particular business, to get the activity data that is associated with the direct emissions within their business. If it's an energy company, then they know the activity data of coal, so they put in place that system on annual basis, because they know they are going to present it to through CDP. So they have a system to continually monitor coal usage, diesel usage, which is the activity data that we also need, you remember, for the GHG inventory through IPCC methodology. They already have ways to monitor, for instance, the information that relates to production, production statistics, to clinker content and all that, which is how scope 1 is calculated. If you remember, GHG protocol, scope 1 is really what we would call the general IPCC approach. And then scope 2 then also gives us then an indication of the electricity consumption distribution national. So once that is there, we do not exactly take the results of the CDP, but we take the same activity data that they use to calculate for the CDP emission results. Is the same activity data that then they can present to us. But what is best is that they can now integrate that system of data gathering, data monitoring, data recording in their daily activities.
Okay, I see. So it's basically a way
answers your question, Erasme.
Of gathering the necessary information and then being able to channel this as needed for various reporting requirements. It's just a matter of setting out the framework within companies at the bottom level so that they're actually able to deliver the base activity data that you can then take and use as needed for the various reporting purposes.
That is it. That is it, as Erasme, in the sense that we are looking for that particular data. As long as, if we can get companies to have this, rather than using a stick, chase them to do this, have a system that can actually incentivize or make sustainability reporting as part of their daily activities. Therefore, they put in place a system for us to be able to get that information yearly.
So the question we had from South Africa to the others also before this meeting, but also during this meeting, is to what extent those countries that do have a great deal of voluntary reporting are thinking of turning that into mandatory reporting, and also how you can best frame this kind of reporting to support access to the information. I mean, we heard a couple of incentives. We heard the most recent data. We heard the need of companies to just not have their emissions overestimated. But what really are some of the incentives? How does it work in practice? This going back to companies establishing these MOUs so as to ensure that the quality is there, the consistency is there, and the will is there for them to report. And then to what extent there is some thinking of moving on afterwards to mandatory reporting. So I would like to pass this question to Dirk, and maybe Dirk, you can give us a little bit of Germany's perspective on that.
Yeah, thank you, Rasmia. I may perhaps in particular say some words on the quality assurance on the voluntary agreements. So one part of these agreements are always a codification of quality needs we have for the data, and with the agreement, the data supplier also agrees to deliver the data in this quality, and and on the other side, we agreed as well that in case of questions of the review team, we can come back to the data supplier to support us with additional information, with additional improvements of the quality. So that's as we have a quality assurance system in place for the system, which is somehow a subsystem of our national system. This is agreed and implemented as well with the agreements.
Okay. Do you plan on moving from voluntary to mandatory, this kind of relationships, or you think the system should continue to work in this very same way?
I guess as the system now is working pretty good, and we have really nearly known data stream break in the last years, and the only serious data stream break we had was with an official statistic, not with voluntary agreements. We will pretty much stay with this system as it is working, but on the other side, as the requirements of the UNFCCC and as well on the EU for the reporting is much higher than for the first commitment period, we are thinking about to have this system on a more stable basis, but this is difficult because to have new regulations or to get new regulations in that is really hard in Germany, because the German government is really hesitating to put extra burdens in terms of regulations on the industry.
Okay. Thank you, Dirk. Maybe Monica, to you, again, in terms of this question of voluntary versus mandatory, your system seems to be based mostly on this new legal framework and these mandatory requirements, but you do say you have a small part of it that does remain voluntary. Wanting to combine that, how does that work, along with the fact that you're a huge country, lots of different states? How do you manage to work this out on a state level? How does this voluntary part of your system translates up to the federal level in order to fulfill the needs, your reporting needs and the system's needs? Monica? I don't hear Monica. Is Monica still with us? Oh, Monica's mic is not working?
Monica?
Yes, here she is.
I think that Dana, that during the phone you can hear me, but the others cannot.
I think now can hear you.
Okay, Erasme, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So, I was just clarifying that the voluntary part of the emissions registry is to register the emissions reduction, only for reduction. The part of emissions registry that is now mandatory has a prior phase in a voluntary phase, on a voluntary basis, that was the GHG protocol. And that GHG protocol experience worked very well for Mexico. But now with the general law, we have this mandatory national registry of emissions, and it's just right now in the design of how it's going to work. We're going to end this design at the end of March, I think, so I can give you more details on March. But the question that you make me is like how it's working now, the mandatory facing the voluntary. The private sector are having a lot of requests and having a lot of questions about this mandatory registry, but I think it's really going to take into account all the experience made from the GHG protocol voluntary registry, and we're not going to have any problem to involve these private sector companies in this new registry. We are looking very on detail, not to make more bureaucracy and more formats to fill. We're going to use the same we use in the GHG protocol. So we're trying to make this not a burden to the private sector. I don't know if I answer your question.
Yeah. No, I think that's valid. But how does, maybe just to touch for one more second on this relationship state-federal and how this will translate on this kind of level, because I know a lot of countries and also in Africa is a big problem. How do you bring all these different actors together, whether it's for voluntary or mandatory reporting? You guys have a lot of experience with that.
Yes, we are going to use a federal website. It's going to be an electronic system. At local state, at the local level, they're used to register the emissions because we have another experience called REDSE, that it was a registry of emissions, of certain emissions, not only GHG, but we're used to report our emissions at a level state. So we're pretty sure that we're going to have any problems with this new national registry.
Okay, I see. Thank you, Monica. Another last question, and we're probably gonna slowly be closing this webinar that we got before the webinar was cooperation with with neighboring countries, or in terms of getting, in particular, energy data. We know very often that when countries do not themselves have activity data, in particular energy data, there's always some reference to neighboring countries to try to use those as a benchmark. So I don't know if maybe Mexico has some experience with that, or if Dirk or the EU also could comment on that. Please do send me a text, but maybe I can start with Monica if you guys have an experience with that.
Erika, can you please say it again, the question about the energy? I was not listening well.
Yeah, whether how much do you cooperate with other countries, or how much do you are you able to work with other countries in terms of getting data information or benchmarking information that you need for your own reporting? That's a question that came from South Africa, because very often problem of many non-Annex 1 countries is that they might not have the data themselves, so sometimes they need to use as a benchmark other existing data from other countries, and this is particularly true for energy data. So I don't know if you've dealt with this problem. It's something that you can at all provide an opinion on.
Yes, we dealt with that, but like many years ago, well, not many, but like in '86, when we were just starting to update our inventories, and we have a lot of international cooperation with the International Energy Agency. We also have cooperation with the U.S. and Canada because of our nearby. So yes, we are used to work with them, but now we are capable. We have built capacity to have our own statistics on energy, and they are reflected in our national inventory of GHG.
So it's more a matter of working with these international agencies and try to work with them on slowly ironing out the data, if I understand correctly.
Exactly.
Okay. And maybe, I don't know if anyone has, okay. Dirk, you have a comment? Maybe I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I just can support what Monica said. I think the international data is out anyway. There for most countries, even for most of the African countries, there are international data at least for energy with the International Energy Agency. There are data for agriculture with the FAO, and this data can be used. And there is there are default emission factors from the IPCC. So the data for the first setup is already there, and this can be used.
Okay, thank you, Dirk. And the last question to Dana. Well, the EU already in its internal legislation has gone a step further than what has been happening currently internationally. So my question to you, and going back to Tapello's voluntary versus mandatory, is how at the EU level do you manage to get on board the big industries, the big players, to accept further commitments of further reporting than is currently required internationally? What are the main drivers there, and how do you incentivize them?
Okay, I'll try to answer to that. Well, it's not a very easy answer. Of course, for us, the most accurate and the most important set of data that we get from the industry is the one that we get from the ETS reporting requirements. So that this would be how we incentivize the industry. Of course, it's not voluntary. It's a law. It is a very complicated piece of legislation. So I wouldn't know how to say it differently than this.
But it sounds like basically the carbon market itself seems to be a strong enough driver for them to be willing to further work on their reporting obligations.
Of course, yes. If you are from the perspective of a plant, improving the monitoring is, as Dirk was saying, basically having better emission factors, showing that your emission levels are going down. So then having a better position from the perspective of the market, being able to sell some of your allowances or maybe buy less, depending on the case. So I think there is a strong incentive there, but again, it is inbuilt in the legislation, and it doesn't come from other voluntary vectors, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Well, I see two people are typing. I'll wait for their message to see if there is maybe a last question from our participants. Maybe I'll use this time just to say that we can continue this discussion online. You already see on your browsers
where you need to log in to continue having this discussion, and maybe now that when you have at your own space and time the opportunity to review the presentations, if any more questions pop up or any more ideas or thoughts, please do log in there, shoot the questions, and we'll try to make sure that there is a follow-up and we keep this alive, because it's important as you go through questions or problems that there is that there is some feedback there. Okay, so Juan is saying, I'd like to know who performs these reports, how to avoid false information data to be reported. Maybe Dirk, you can say a bit more on the QA/QC on your side, and maybe Tapelo. Tapelo, I guess, already said that they have the strict rules from the GHG protocol, but is someone at the federal level controlling those? Maybe Dirk and Tapelo can say a few, first Dirk and then Tapelo can say a few words on how you guys quality assure the reporting from the companies.
So first a question back, does reports mean the inventory report and the inventory, or the reports from the data supplier? If it is the inventory report, then clearly it's us, the Federal Environment Agency, and we ensure, you never really can ensure that the information are entirely right, but we have a quality system based on checklist. So that means that the data provider has to fill in a checklist what kind of quality checks they performed, and certain types of quality checks they are asked to fulfill. And in the last stance, to avoid that the informations are wrong, are the international reviews. The reviews are checking these informations we give with our inventories, are checking the activity data, the emissions factors, and often they have questions on that, and then we have to provide additional information to ensure and to prove that the information we deliver are right. And besides that, underlying that, we have our quality assurance procedures with plausible checks and cross checks according to through the inventories, so that we can from our side be on the safe side that the data we provide is within ranges of uncertainty the right ones.
And maybe just to add to that of course for industry level data, they do require to have an independent verification report. So there are companies out there whose job is to verify. It's very much like you have your accounting and you have your PwCs and what have you that go and verify that the information that you report in your accounting or tax reports are correct. I guess it's the equivalent process for the emission data. Tapelo, on the CDP side, maybe how does the process work with the verification?
You are correct, Razmia. In fact, that very point, that very last point that you made is really the key. So the CDP in itself has got an element of third-party verification, or they call it assurance, which you'll see from my slides. I think it's the last slide where I've shown that already about 50% of those companies embark on or subject their information, all of it, to third-party verification at their cost. And this we are talking about the auditors, like you said. And this is in addition, now that's from the information compilation or receiving part, but the report itself, when it comes to the department, we do internal quality control measures the standard ones that are part of the good practice guidance, for instance, the time series approaches and all those. But all in all, after we have compiled all this information, after doing this basic quality control checks and knowing that some of the information from the companies themselves have undergone verification, we do a very comprehensive third-party auditing of the whole greenhouse gas inventory report, which in some cases includes actually checking some of the data in some of those from some of those companies, specifically going and checking the numbers directly.
Yes. Thank you, Tapelo. So maybe just to be wrapping our e-discussion, and I'm keeping a left eye on what Juan is writing. So just to say, I mean, as a wrap up, that okay, Monica, you have. Sorry, before I say, I think Juan wants also the Mexican perspective. Yes, please do provide your answer.
Thank you, Juan. In the case of Mexico, we are using the same. In Spanish, it's called Cédula de Información. It's a standardized format that we use to monitoring the emissions of some companies, private sector, and we use that standard format for many reports. So it's easy to look to the numbers and to verify the numbers if we try to check those different reports. We have reports on energy, we have on the energy sector, we have reports on the national inventory, we have reports for the environmental impact assessment. So we use the format for all those reports, and we try to avoid that somehow that the incorrect data. But also we're going to have in this new national emission registry, we're going to have a verification every 3 years. So that is something new from the national emissions registry.
Okay, thank you, Monica. So maybe just one quick sentence to try to wrap up today's webinar. I think we've seen different mixes of voluntary and mandatory reporting in different countries, very much based on international data, on international initiatives, whether it's the WRI or the CDP or MOUs with companies, or just very strict legislation at the country level. I mean, the mix again should be determined by the individual circumstances in each country. It is important to incentivize companies. It is important to show them not only the benefits of having their most accurate and their latest data out there, but also the cost benefits that come to them by having them establish systems that really address various reporting requirements, whether it's air pollution or climate change. I think we've heard quite a bit about the importance of having holistic systems addressing mitigation and adaptation concerns, and also the importance of really having good cooperation systems at the country level, where industry players and government players can come together and really understand the purpose of this whole reporting. I think this has been very significant, and since we have been finishing with QA/QC, I think the third-party verification is very strong out there. Many countries are using it. The UNFCCC as such has very strict requirements. I mean, countries, at least the Annex 1 countries, are required to have very strong QA/QC systems. That's very important, and I think all of these international agencies or international reporting initiatives, through having the standard reports and formats, actually do provide a way of of ensuring that the information reported is indeed correct. And of course now with the ICA and IAR processes at the international level, there is an extra final check that's been happening. As said, the discussion will continue. The discussion will continue on the web with an discussion. I would like to thank Dirk, Dana, Monica, and Tapelo for their presentations, and Adele, Sven, and Sebastian from GIZ for putting this together, and of course all of the people who participated today, whose names we see on the left-hand side. Thank you very much for taking part. The presentations will also be put on the relevant website. Please do check out the presentations, check out the discussion. We'll try to come back with any questions. We're also going to try to provide you with a very short overview of today's webinar. Thank you for participating. Thank you for having me as a coordinator. So I guess this is a goodbye. It feels weird to say goodbye to my computer, but I'll be happy to see all of you again in a more live setting. Have a nice evening or nice afternoon.
Thank you very much, Erasmia.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you very much, Erasmia. Bye-bye.
Isabella, bye.
Dana and Monica, you're at the microphone too.
Thank you, everyone. It was very nice to hear you. And thank you for this really interesting information.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so here in South Africa,